Welcome to Stargate SG-1 for the first time, still not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the 47th time, but for the first time, I'm looking for what Stargate is trying to teach us. You know, those good sci-fi messages. Messages that hold up a mirror to society, give us hope that things can be better in the future, or just teach us how to be better human beings to one another.
This week, Brent, we're watching 1969. And in this episode, I'm going to get a little more specific than I did in the prediction. In this episode, Tilk will get his first real six string. Jack will buy it at the 5 and dime. He'll play it till his fingers bleed. Sam will say it's the summer of 69.
How long did you spend writing that?
I literally made that up on the fly.
You did not.
You can look at the notes. The notes right here literally say Tilk will get his first real six string ... That's all it says.
Oh, that's as far as you got with it. Okay.
That's how this thing works, man.
Yeah. Jeff, I've done show endings with you now for how many episodes have we done together?
Yeah, and I've gotten like one of them that was almost sort of okay. I'm really bad at those shows.
We've done over 100 episodes together at this point.
Yeah.
Between Babylon 5, the couple of Stargate episodes we've done, and then this one, or Star Trek episodes, I mean.
Yeah, because at this point, Babylon 5 in this, we are...
Are we like 80, 90, something like that?
About 90 episodes in, yeah. And then and this is like the 40th or 38th or whatever of this one. So yeah, we've done a lot of episodes. So you know my show endings and how fast this thing works.
Yes, the minutes upon minutes that we have spent pre-show trying to figure out what that ending is going to look like.
Well, Brent, why don't you tell us about this one, 1969?
Well, this is episode 21 of season 2, penultimate episode for season 2, 1969. Original air date, February 3rd, 1998. I did see, though, Jeff, that according to other sources, the original air date was March 5th, 1998 or 99, whatever it is. For whatever reason, my note says 1993, and I'm not really sure what it should be.
It said that for you. It said that last week for you too. So like,
yeah, well, that's what happens when you cut and paste. Today's episode is written by show creator Brad Wright. So take that for what it's worth. And with that, Jeff, I'm not going to give you anything else about this episode.
With that alone, I'm pretty sure my prediction isn't true. So it sucks.
Just because it's Brad Wright?
Yeah. Why would he write that episode?
Because he's awesome.
Okay, that's fair. I'll keep hope alive.
He's the guy who has produced the show so far. So
that's fair.
And all its little antics. Anyway, with that, it is time for us to go watch this episode, Jeff. If you guys out there are joining us for the very first time, welcome. You guys are amazing. The way this works is Jeff and I are going to go watch 1969 right now. We're going to do that together. If you're hanging out with us over on YouTube, you're going to catch the reaction video, and then we're going to do some stuff afterwards. If you want the full unedited version, head over to patreon.com/ link is down below.
Bye, nerds.
That's it right there.
Oh,
wait, let's try that again. Go to www.patreon.com/
Bye, nerds.
And I like that, Jeff. That's
I like
fun.
that too. That's good.
And you guys can catch full unedited video of Jeff and I watching this episode.
If you're one of our audio podcast listeners, you are amazing, and we're so glad you're here. You're about to gate into the future, where you will hear my for the first time reactions to this episode and any of the sci-fi messages that Brent might have found. Brent, let's kick it off. 1969.
Chevron 7 locked.
All right, well, welcome back to all of our audio listeners. You have just gated into the future. Jeff and I have now watched 1969. We just finished watching it like 30 seconds ago. Jeff, take us through it. What was your experience visiting the summer of 69?
It was the summer of 69. They were heading to Woodstock and everything.
Yeah, dude. Dodging the draft and
The stuff you do in the 60s.
breaking into observatories. Stuff you do in the 60s.
Who didn't do that stuff, really?
Right?
I want to start with I have a big gripe in this episode, and I want to start with that.
Shut up.
I do.
No.
And it's not even
No.
just...
This episode is flawless. There is nothing wrong with it. Shut your mouth right now.
Maybe it's not this episode that my gripe is with.
No, go ahead. What?
A thing that happened in this episode and has happened in other episodes related to Sam.
Okay.
She's kind of a hypocrite. So like in this episode, dude, she is banging a drum.
Yeah.
On a soapbox, riding a horse, a really high horse. Well, you can't talk about this, and you can't do this, and there's rules to time travel, and I know everything about time travel, and you can't, and hey, don't say that. They end up in the future with Cassandra, which was super cool, and the first thing out of her mouth, we have so much to ask you and learn about. What were you doing this whole episode but telling your team you can't do that thing? And she's done similar stuff in so many other episodes. It's very frustrating.
Well, you know what it is? It is the difference, and I'm glad that this show actually explores it. It explored it both in season 1. Very few other shows have ever really explored it. There's whenever we meet a civilization that's not as advanced as us, we know we cannot give you our technology because you could use it in the wrong way. You're not ready for it yet. You can't handle it yet. But yet, as soon as we meet a civilization that has higher technology than we do, we get all pissy about the fact that they can't share their technology, even though it would save our lives or change something for us now or whatever.
I can think of like 4 Voyager episodes that are that exactly, where Janeway's like, you know what, go across, we're stealing it.
Yeah.
But that's not a gripe on this episode. Brent, this episode is pretty darn close to perfect.
Isn't it fun? It's a fun episode. After one small step or one false step or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then even last week with Show and Tell, like Show and Tell is an episode I like. I watch it every time I go through the run through, but 1969 is an episode I just look forward to every time I'm watching. Like 1969 is a comfort episode to me. I'll throw it. I think I watched it last week just because like I was trying to go to bed or something. Just 1969. I just watch it. It's just a fun episode, man.
It's an episode that builds on other episodes, not just story wise, but like the stuff that happens in it is hilarious and witty because we know these characters now, like we understand who they are, their relationships, their backgrounds. Like there was story stuff that was cool where like they called back to Torment of Tantalus a couple of times and a few other episodes, just little pieces that was really awesome, but little things. Like there was one of my favorite exchanges was when they first end up in 69 and they're in the missile silo in Cheyenne Mountain. And you guys are a bunch of Soviet spies, right? And he says in Russian, and Daniel's like, Niet. Jack's like, dude, he's like, what? I just told him where you're because oh, shoot.
You know what I loved about that scene? I'm sorry. You know what I loved about that scene? I've never noticed it before this watch through. With Daniel in the background, like while everybody, he's turned around like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Like it's the same thing. I've never noticed Jack blowing the smoke before at the end of his little interview. And we've noted a few times where Richard Dean Anderson does those little things that can't be in the script. Like they have to be acting choices. And you're kind of seeing that rub off on some of the other actors now, which is great.
But if we didn't know Daniel and Jack the way we do, that would have been a kind of obnoxious scene, just like, oh, look at, okay, or just blah, blah, blah. But because we know them, it was hilarious. So I think you mentioned in the end of this, when they first signed for Stargate SG-1, it was 2 seasons that they signed for. And so in like the original plan, overall plan, whatever, they didn't have a, beat by beat thing, but they had an idea. This was going to be the second to last episode of the series. And what I think is cool about that is like, this didn't really move anything forward. It really introduced the idea, the concept of using the gate for time travel. Like that's a thing, but you could end a series with, and also this, but yeah, this just played on all the cool stuff, that we've watched so far.
Now, to be fair, I don't know that, they were originally given 44 episodes, 2 seasons. That's what they got greenlit for. I don't know that they had a plan for all 44 episodes. Like I can't sit back and say that this was the plan from the beginning. It might've been. I don't know. But when Cassie says there at the end, she goes, and your adventure is just beginning. That feels like such an end of a series thing to say. Like, hey, you've been through all this and this is just beginning. There's so much more for you.
First start of the right and straight on till morning. Whoosh.
Sure. Great, Captain Kirk. Thanks.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the end. And here we still go with all that. Speaking of Captain Kirk,
Right?
What an epic scene. And I called it. I called it.
You know, you said that, and like the little Trekkie in me just starts jumping up and down.
It was so awesome. So they're in the thing. I forget it's 1969. They got to come up with a cover story. And I'm like, yeah, it's 69. People know Star Trek. Star Trek was really popular. Throw up the signal and be like, yeah, we're from the Enterprise or or whatever. And then he did. Captain Kirk from the Starship Enterprise. And that when that didn't get anywhere and he wanted to like,
and the interviewer didn't even seem to listen to your Kirk.
Which is like we said it there, and it's like here. There's this feeling nowadays that Star Trek got canceled after 3 seasons because it didn't get viewers and people didn't like it. The reality is it cost a fortune to make that TV show, and not even Desilu Studios could keep that level of quality going. And you see that in the season 3 of TOS, like the quality drops off pretty hard because it just costs a lot of money to make that stuff. It had incredible viewership. People knew who Captain Kirk was. So that was a little lame that he didn't know. But then he's like, oh shoot, maybe he knows who he is. So I'm Luke Skywalker. It's dumb, but it's just a lot of fun.
But it's so in character for O'Neill though.
Totally on brand.
Yeah.
Tilk, there were some missed opportunities with Tilk in this one. We talked about he gets all hippied up, and perfect opportunity for him to drop in Indeed showed up. He didn't do that, so we'll give him missed opportunity 1 there. But the big missed opportunity is he shouldn't have said Indeed. Should have said groovy.
Yeah.
But then Daniel got that line. And it was just like, I mean, it
and
worked.
He threw it away. Like, I'm sorry, no, it worked, but Daniel threw it away. It should have.
You put that in Tilk's mouth, and that's the high point of the episode right there. That would have been so good. He had like this big like kind of fro wig thing going on. Just, I mean, this was. In a lot of ways, this episode was dumb. Like they use like this stock 60s music for the montages, and they have like the Indiana Jones map with the red line going. It's kind of dumb, but they did it in such a way that it's awesome and a blast. And like,
I was about to punch you, just so you know.
That's fair. That's fair. But this was just, I think for this one, this was really just a celebration of Stargate.
Yeah.
And caps off like the first, I don't know, chapter or whatever, first 2 seasons, whatever it is. This is a great kind of cap for that. And then I imagine like next we're probably going to have like probably another 2-parter to close out to close out and open up the seasons, and we'll be back in business, but this is just kind of a fun thing. My outstanding question that I don't want you to answer, but we'll see, but I have in my head is time travel now going to be a thing that crops up from time to time? Because they seem to have it dialed in pretty well at this point. So we'll see.
Even if they don't really know the rules of time travel.
So great segue. We talked a little bit about the rules and mechanics of time travel during the episode, but I want to dive in to that a little bit. So for our audio listeners who missed that conversation, they can catch it on YouTube or on Patreon if they want to. That's patreon.com/Bye
Nerds.
I love that.
So cool. That's my little girl.
Uh-huh.
She's not so little anymore, but it's when she was. Pretty cool. But we've just created for ourselves a tremendous editing nightmare for both sides.
Yes.
With that, Brent, will you share any sci-fi messages?
Frankly, no, here's the editing to that. Snip.
I just cut it out. In the audio, I'll just plop it at the end. Right? Like, hey, if you want to stick around afterwards, you can hear our little deep dive into nothing.
Well, here we go. Okay, so Jeff, particularly for our audio folks, you and I have just had an incredibly lengthy discussion about stuff that really has nothing to do with Stargate. So we are cutting that piece out. And if folks want to stick around for what is at least a 20-minute discussion, Jeff,
I think so, yeah,
on the nature of time and the universe and space and that sort of stuff, you're welcome to stick around towards the end. Fair warning, it all comes with the asterisk of, yeah, we don't know.
We don't know anything.
Musings of a couple of knuckleheads on a podcast. Like,
and to be clear, sober knuckleheads. Like, I don't want to be like, what were they doing? No, this is what we're doing.
But it is family friendly listen though.
It is
a family friendly. So if you guys want to check that out at the end of the episode, but Jeff, we do need to get back into talking about Stargate. Jeff, you just talked to us about your experiences for the first time watching this episode 1969. I have some experiences.
Okay.
I get to watch this episode for the first time looking for messages. I'm not going to lie. I completely did not do my job through this episode. I was having so much fun with this episode. I didn't even think to look. Like, I don't know. It's possible. Much like I don't know what the nature of the universe is, much like I don't know what the limits of space-time are, much like I don't know what the shape of time is or if time is even a reality. I don't know if there are really messages that exist within this episode because I was having so much fun watching this episode, just thinking through right now, trying to figure out if he can pull something out of the air.
I have a little something, and it's around the hippies that picked up our SG-1 crew.
Michael and Bunny.
There's this didn't happen, but there's a version of that whole storyline that would have made this a message. What happened was Tilk literally just stood out in the middle of the street, put his arms out, and stopped this painted up bus with two people heading to Woodstock. And immediately they were like, come on in, let's go. They were super welcoming. And like, there was no drama. There was no nothing. They went shopping. They did, had a whole fun 60s montage. They were supportive all the way. Even when they found out they were what they believed were aliens, they were still like, we have to help these people. We have to do that. That's pretty awesome. That's cool. It didn't pay off. And in fact, it blew up in Michael's face because we find out later Michael's drafted and they want to go back to the planet with them so he doesn't have to go kill people. He's like, I don't want to kill people. And they're like, oh, too bad. Sorry, you can't come with us. And I mentioned during the watch that it would be cool if when the episode ends, he's good and we're 30 years in the future and like Daniel or Jack or Sam or somebody's like, hey, thanks, we're hooking you up with this, whatever. I think there would have been a message if we had the bow at the end of it. Without that, it's like, hey, it's cool to be cool to people. Also, it can cost you, I guess, which is a zero chevron message, but it's
let me ask you this. Who writes this episode where we do all that? They get home, they look Michael up, and he died in Vietnam.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Before we gate into the rest of this episode, did you know you're missing most of the content from this podcast? Stargate SG-1 for the first time has an active and exciting Patreon that you can join right now by clicking the link in the show notes. Not only will you get access to the full, unedited podcast and reaction videos, you'll also be able to join a growing, vibrant, maybe even an intergalactic community. Subscribers even get access to all of our content from Babylon 5 for the first time. Don't miss out on this content and the amazing people. Just click the link in the show notes. Tilk thinks you should do it right now.
Indeed.
That's a JMS. That's a total JMS approach to this one. And also, totally appropriate. Mm-hmm.
But talk about bringing it down. I mean, you have otherwise a great episode that just turns into a downer. Like, you can't do that, man. Can't do that.
That's a very Babylon 5 thing to do.
So, yeah, I mean, you gave me all that time to think, but I'm not catching the, hey, listen, I'm actually going to put this back out there on the viewers. Did you catch a message? I didn't get one. I've got to, that being said, I have to leave this at 0 chevrons. Please bear in mind, chevrons have absolutely nothing to do with how much you like an episode. I just said the whole reason why I didn't get it is because I was enjoying the episode so much. All right. So I don't have that, but Jeff, you have to, you get to rank this episode in our 100% completely accurate, definitive season 2 ranking of Stargate SG-1. I'm going to go from the top down. I'm going to say our top 10. I'm going to start from 10 and go all the way to 1 because I don't know that this is going to crack Jeff's top 5, but I do believe it'll probably be in his top 10. And so we'll see where it lays. Number 10 is currently At Holiday. That's the Michello episode. Number 9 was Touchstone. Number 8 was In the Line of Duty. That's where we met Jolinar. Serpent's Song. That's where we got Old Apophis. Tok'ra parts 1 and 2. Spirits with Tanane. Thor's Chariot. Secrets, Serpent's Grasp, and Serpent's Lair. That was the season 1, season 2 cliffhanger. And then the number 1 episode of the entire season is The Fifth Race. Jeff, you can put this anywhere from 2 to 10, and I'm not going to be mad at you. What you got?
This isn't where I'm putting it, but I'll tell you where my initial thought was looking at it is I was going to make this the new number 5, pushing Spirits out of the top 5.
Yep.
And I feel pretty good about that ranking until I look down at the next couple. And it's like, God, those are some great episodes. So ultimately, this is going to do a thing that I'm kind of uncomfortable with, but this is going to flush In the Line of Duty down to number 9, as this is going to be our new number 8 episode.
You're fired.
That was a good one.
You're fired. You're fired. Listen, I love Spirits. Spirits is a great episode. There is no way you can tell me Spirits is 3 spots higher, 4 spots higher than 1969. You cannot tell me that.
You know, a better way of saying that is there's no way that Spirits is 1 higher than the Tok'ra parts 1 and 2, or 2 of Serpent's Song.
There's no way that Serpent's Song is 1 better than 1969, or Tok'ra is 2 better than 1969. There's no way. There's no way. Although I did say anywhere between 2 and 10 we'd be fine with, so whatever.
I think for me, as a
you
first
knocked
time,
Holiday out of the top 10 to keep Spirits and Tok'ra, and Serpent's Song. I mean, my God, listen, that just speaks to the quality of the season. Because I tell you what, Spirits was a flargin' good episode. It is low key a great episode. I hope you catch as much flack for Spirits as you caught for TKO. I hope you've caught that much flack.
Because I will still defend Spirits. That was a great episode. I think for me with 1969, what it kind of comes down to, what a fun, awesome episode. It was a celebration. It was all those great things. But I'm a first time viewer who knows there are like 7, 8 more seasons after this. So I'm interested in that stuff that's moving the story forward in ways, so
yeah. Listen, your ranking is your ranking. That's 1,000% fair. I do feel the need, though, as we're in the middle of round, as we're recording this, Jeff, we're rounding the corner on Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There is no overarching story moving forward in Stargate. It is an episodic show that is fully self-realized and grows. The show grows as the characters grow, or characters grow as the show, whatever. There's no plan, there's no story, so to speak, going forward, but
well, I think there's a universe, though. There's a universe, right? So learning about the Tok'ra, learning about the technology that's out there, and just the world building that happens.
That is true. Yep. I just want to make sure that you're clear. There is no overarching plan of a story going through, but there is definitely progress. You get to the end of this, you could write the Stargate story,
but it's all retrospective.
Yeah.
And I even think too, like, we're doing a lot of universe and world building. I love it. It's amazing. That wasn't planned, right? They're like, hey, here's this idea. Oh, let's do this. And then let's do this. And then tie it together somehow. So I get like, this is just kind of riffing.
What if they go back in 1969? Who's back? They could go meet Catherine. And look, and they can reference all this. They can reference the meeting him. They can reference, her dad finding the dig and Ernest Littlefield. We can reference all that just to sort of prove, because it makes sense. Because you know what would happen if they went to meet Catherine and they didn't reference Ernest Littlefield? You and I would be sitting right here talking about why didn't they reference Ernest Littlefield?
Exactly. That was the whole point of that awesome episode.
So Jeff puts it in at number 2 low is the number he put it at. Jeff, we didn't get any For Crying Out Louds and Deeds or Daniel deaths in this episode, did we?
0.
We will not update those. And with that officially is going to put a button here on 1969. Would you care to sing it one more time, Jeff, before we go?
No, I really don't. And I don't think anyone wants me to either.
I don't either. All right. Well, guys, that's it. Hey, next week, Jeff, you referenced this earlier, and I will confirm we are watching the season 2 finale. It is a 2-parter, a cliffhanger into season 3. We will be doing those together as one episode. So buckle in for next week. The 2 episodes are called Out of Mind and Into the Fire. So Out of Mind, Into the Fire. It's not a part 1, part 2 per name, but it's
one story.
It's a to be continued, and we pick up right where we left off. So Jeff, what do you think? Out of Mind and Into the Fire.
Into the Fire is a super loaded title, especially for where we are in our Babylon 5 record.
It is. Oh, that was such a great episode.
That was a great episode.
Oh my gosh. Number one episode of Babylon 5 for me so far.
Out of Mind and Into the Fire.
Yeah.
I'm not going to break it down episode by episode. The overall piece is we're going to tie back to the Apophis stuff and the Tok'ra and all that. And so this is going to be a conflict between the Gould and the Tok'ra. And I think I've predicted this before, but basically this will start, ramp up, and then the season 3 opener will be basically the wrap up of a conflict between those that'll set things on a new trajectory.
So your prediction then is that the season 2 finale will set up the season 3 beginning, and season 3 will wrap up what was set up in season 2.
Yes.
You're a good guesser, Jeff.
Oh yeah, sure.
You're a good guesser. Well, Jeff, that is going to do it for us then today on Stargate SG-1. For the first time, still not a Star Trek podcast, despite us getting a James T. Kirk USS Enterprise drop in the middle of this episode.
Great.
Thank you guys so much out there for joining us. We really appreciate it. And hey, like we said earlier, if you want to stick around for an entirely stupid, theoretical, could be maybe possible conversation, you can do that after the show today. Don't forget, wherever you subscribe to us, leave us a rating, a review. Please share this podcast with somebody that you know who loves Stargate or needs to get into the gate for the very first time. Incredible series. Lots of fun. Tilk should have said groovy. Until next time, folks, we will see you
Brent.
then.
Hey.
So close. Yes, sir. What's up, Jeff?
The other day, that like that whole spy thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're not a Soviet spy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, for crying out loud.
We talked a lot about the rules. So Sam, when she was riding on her high horse that was on a soapbox around what they could and couldn't do, there was really all the sci-fi tropes about, the grandfather paradox, that if you do this and there wasn't that. And we saw some, just those, well, you couldn't this, don't tell him that because you'll mess this up. Mm-hmm. You shared a lot. So, and I'm going to edify you and bring you up a little bit. Brent's just a podcaster, right? Just homeschools his kids and talks about, football and sci-fi all the time. That's it.
Yeah.
Also, if you had his name out and whatever, there are a series of letters after his name that you have to pay a lot of money and spend a lot of time in a classroom to get. My friend, my co-host Brent Allen, is a highly educated individual who, at the time of this recording, is actually working on another degree for fun. Literally for a good time. So don't take this as just like Brent be like, I watch a lot of sci-fi and this is how it works. No, this is how it works. Brent, break down time travel for us.
Okay, look, here's the deal. If time travel is possible, and I'm not saying that it is impossible, I'm not saying it is possible. My personal suspicion is time travel is possible. One, and this is, well, I don't even go with that. Time is a closed loop, or not closed loop. It's a closed sphere, I would say. Okay. But time, assume with me, time travel is possible. Okay. You know what is impossible are paradoxes. This whole idea of being able to go back in time, kill your grandfather, and then you're never born and you create a paradox. This is all stuff that's made up for drama and novels and fiction. And that's not actually the way it would work. If you go back in time and you kill your grandfather, you always went back in time and killed your grandfather. Therefore, that guy wasn't actually your grandfather. So you need to go have a conversation with your grandma.
What really happened here?
And this episode goes back and proves it. Every bit of time travel in this episode was cyclical, spherical, whatever. Hammond always met these guys way back in 1969. That didn't change. Cassie always sent them back to their past. That never changed. They always had these interactions. Those things never changed. What happened is what happened, and it affected us here today, because it's really just the loop. If I go back and kill my grandfather, then I'm never born, which means I don't go back to kill my grandfather, which means my grandfather is there, which means I am then born. And it's not a paradox. Those two things can't happen. It's, if I go back in time, I always went back in time. I was always there. And it's what I love so much and appreciate so much about the Prisoner of Azkaban book, because in that book, that's exactly how time travel is written, and what they use, until later on in the series when they mess that whole thing completely up and then they undo it. And I get very, very sad. But time travel is, I do believe it's possible, but you're never going to change the past. It is impossible to change the past. You cannot change the past, not because of permission, but because you can't actually change the past.
Because we're a sci-fi thing, I'm going to use the word paradox just because that's a word they use for this stuff. I'm going to call that the Wild Stallions paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, hey, we got to make sure that I record the things. So my dad goes over here in the trash can that comes down. Those things always happened.
He always did it. Yeah.
Socrates left ancient Greece to come forward and then went back. Like that was what always happened.
Abraham Lincoln, Genghis Khan, they always
Joan of Arc.
Worked. Yeah. Rufus.
It's how Joan of Arc was able to go back and like really get her army in shape because she, learned the aerobics and stuff. It's just, duh.
Well, when you're a maniac on the floor, then how can you not take over Europe?
Now, what I want to push back on that whole theory, though, just a little bit. So that's science that you've brought forward. Science. Theoretical science. Theories based in a container of scientific practice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And to your point that you made even during the episode, like that's an approach from like a physics and astrophysical almost perspective. There are physicists who do not agree with that and physicists who do agree with that.
Yeah, and nobody actually knows because nobody's done it.
So I think Stephen Hawking knows because he actually held a party for time travelers and no one showed up. That actually happened. I mean, that's all the proof you need.
Maybe just Stephen Hawking's an awful host and forgot to send out invitations and whatnot.
But where I want to bring in a theory that's not scientific at all, more spiritual, and I'm going to bring Deepak Chopra into this conversation.
Okay.
Deepak says the past is gone, the future is not here. He also says the past is a memory and the future a dream. The only thing that exists is now.
Okay.
And our perception as human beings, I'm outside of his quotes now, but our perception as human beings, by the time we perceive now, it's the past. So everything that we're perceiving and doing right now doesn't actually exist. So if that's the case, does time exist at all? Or is everything that's happened just a memory that exists in our minds and didn't actually happen in any way?
It's a neat concept. It's an interesting concept. Like several things in physics, truthfully, it actually gets to be more philosophical than actually physics. And it really just depends on how you define your words at this point. So, without getting into the too deep nitty gritty, sure, if that's how you want to define those words. What is time? The question is then, what is time?
Yeah, time. We talk about things existing in time and space, right? Like that's the thing, but space exists. We can sense it, we can feel it, we can measure it, we can all those things. Time is a man-made construct. I mean, there was yesterday, there will be tomorrow.
It's a man-made construct in the same way that space is a man-made construct. Because you think about space, you can only think about space with it being finite. You cannot comprehend space. You only understand space in terms of being finite. Even when we try to put models of the universe out there, we still put boundaries and edges on the edge of the universe. We talk about how the universe is still constantly expanding. The universe cannot expand unless there's a boundary.
Yeah.
And in that same way, the way Deepak Chopra is defining time is as a particular experience in a particular moment, at a moment in time. Because if you don't have time, you don't have moments. I'm throwing that out there. But also, we may want to, I don't know how we want to edit this for the show because, wow, this is getting way off in the weeds. But when we discuss time, we discuss time in the context of the entire experience of
everyone and everything.
Of everything, everywhere, all at once. When we discuss time, we discuss it in that context, not because what you're saying there is, does the individual second actually matter because this poofs and that poofs? Yeah, but we also talk time is okay. Here's the thing. Because I believe time is spherical. I mentioned that phrase, spherical. The thing about a sphere is you have a center point of a sphere, and we can discuss what we think the center point of the sphere is. But from the center point of a sphere, all points are equidistant, which means past, present, future, all are happening at exactly the same time from the center of the universe.
I like that.
Which is why if you can get into the center of that sphere, you can go to any other point in time equidistant, and it all is happening at the exact same time.
And that lines up with Deepak Chopra's thing of the only thing that exists is now, because now in the center of the sphere encompasses the past, the present, and the future.
And you're equidistant from the and the best way that I can always think about it is a novel, or let's even just say the author of a novel. For that author, the story, the past, the present, and the future all coexist at the exact same time for the author.
They're just laying it out in a way that happens to have an order to it.
And they can dive into the past, they can dive into the middle, they dive in at whatever point they choose to dive into. It is equidistant for them. Metaphors all break down at some point, so I don't want to go too far off into that. But I don't know that you and I have ever gotten this deep into this conversation before, which might be why we're going on about it. But
I'm going to go a layer deeper, just real quick, just to introduce. But because when you were talking about
welcome Patreon to Brent and Jeff just hanging out.
Pretty much.
This is how Brent and Jeff go, just hanging out. Go ahead, Jeff.
We are nerds, so that is a thing we do.
I'm trying my best not to pontificate, because there is no real definitive answer out there that is currently testable with any methods that we have. So it's just really a matter of lots of equations on boards, thinking about it and trying to figure out how it works and what makes the most sense.
Yeah. And like I said, it ends up hitting philosophy.
It's untestable hypotheses is honest, which makes it actually not really a hypothesis, but whatever.
I'm reminded, so you're talking about how we have to define space with limits, right? It has to be finite in those pieces. And that's a thing that we struggle with with time as well. We can't, like, the concept of a infinite God or infinite being is not understandable by us. We need limits, which makes me think of Spinoza, who was a philosopher in the 17th century, who, by the way, I won't deep dive, but incredible views on religion and God that are actually reflected in Babylon 5 in a really good way. But he talks about how there are things that have substance, and then there are the things that are the result of that substance. And substance is a thing that you can describe without referencing anything else. So, like, if you couldn't reference anything, how would you describe what an iPhone is? You can't. I use that to talk to other people. What is talking? What are other people? I use that to transmit data. What is data? How do you so you ask those questions. So what is space? What is time? Can you describe those things without referencing other things? I'm not going to go into the exercise of doing it. I'm just kind of planning this as our segue out of here at a thought exercise. But if you can describe those without referencing anything else, they're substance and they truly exist on their own. But if you have to reference something else, space is the amount of whatever between this point and this. Oh, between these points, you have this stuff. It's finite. There's boundaries you have to reference. And what are those?
Here's the weird thing. I said a minute. In order to conceive space, you have to conceive of it with boundaries. The edges of space, the very idea of the edge of space, an expanding space, means that it's contained.
Mm-hmm.
You also automatically think of what is outside the container.
Like, what's it expanding in?
You think of that.
Is it expanding in the sphere that is time? Like, we could.
It's a wild thing all the way around. I will tell you this. You mentioned God and spiritual stuff and things like that. And again, this is a suspicion. If I can ever get the funding and the ability to go in and actually do testing,
mm-hmm.
and really dig this out. You know, Marvel, the MCU right now is exploring this idea of the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
Physics tells us the multiverse is possible. Multiverse probably exists out there. I have a suspicion. I have a curiosity, a thing. What if what the multiverse actually is are what we would call the mystical spiritual realm today? Like, so God and angels and demons and these things are actually beings that exist in another universe. Like, here's what I don't think the multiverse is. I don't think the multiverse is every choice you make can have it, an infinite amount of choices, and then each one of those, and then it spider webs out, and each one of those.
It's not Schrodinger's, multiverse.
No. I mean, there's not a million universes out there hanging on whether or not I chose to wear socks today or not. It's not that. But I do I do think it is possible that that the multiverse, and we do see places where the various verses out there in the multiverse can cross over and interact with each other. And when we think about what dark matter is and where dark matter comes, people don't know what dark matter, like that's a big field of study right now, is dark matter. And how do we, there are forces of gravity out there in the universe right now that we can't account for.
Yeah, no reason it exists.
There's zero accounting for it. Why not? Multiverse stuff that actually impacts our own universe right now, and we impact theirs. And what does that look like? And alien, potentially even like alien encounters and stuff really are more multiversal,
like crossovers and things.
So anyway, again, is there any real substance to that? No,
it's neat to think about,
but it's neat to think about. Yeah, it's possible. Physics says it's possible.
Exactly. And that makes it worth exploring and thinking about.